And this is why you're out here asking the same people the same questions, YouTubing and watching video after video after video about the same thing, but your life hasn't actually changed because you, the highest authority in your life, have decided or have not yet decided to implement any rules, regulations, boundaries into your own life. Hello beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. I hope that you are all doing well. Before we really deep dive into this conversation, I want to say a massive thank you to Lemonade Finance for sponsoring yet another video on your girl's channel. If you do not know what Lemonade Finance is, girl, have you been living under a rock? I have been ranting and raving about them for weeks. Lemonade Finance is an app where you can transfer money from the UK or Canada to 10 African countries with the best rates and zero fees. And so if you haven't got the app already, head to the link in my description, tap it and download the app, as well as get 10% cash back on your first transaction. But if you already have the app, that's all right. You can use my code Courtney and you will get the same offer. Don't worry if you are not in the UK or Canada. I know I have sisters all over the world over here. Lemonade Finance is actually coming to the USA and Europe very, very soon. And as soon as they do, I will be the first to let you know. Thank you so much, Lemonade Finance, for sponsoring and for supporting over the last couple of weeks. I really, really do appreciate it. So let's talk about it. Being a woman of your word and sticking by what you say, okay? Having integrity, but also showing up for yourself. This was a topic that I brought up towards the end of last week's video, where I was talking about not settling and maintaining high standards in the areas of career, lifestyle, and relationships. And this was one of the comments that I received under the video, and it really touched my heart because I love that this is a community where we can all come together to kind of rub brains together, but also find like-minded people, but also share our common struggles. And something that I have struggled with, as well as some of you have struggled with, is being a woman of your word and maintaining your standards by honoring your word. Who's there to really, flog you or chastise you or discipline you when, you don't wake up at 6 a.m. even though the day before you said you would, or you didn't get in those 4 workouts this week? Who is going to shout at you? It's easy to be blasé about not just our goals, but the habits that we say we're going to put in place when it comes to achieving our goals, because we lack personal accountability. And I wanted to talk about the mindset aspect and kind of tackling what we need to break down in order to become women of integrity, but also the practical aspects that you can leave this video with to help you become someone who keeps your word to yourself. Side note, shout out to all of you who are new subscribers to my channel, especially based on that last video. Welcome to the party. Round here we glow and grow, okay? So this is the comment that I received under my last video. I think the hardest part for me is to be a woman of my words. I know what I'm capable of, but at the same time, it's just hard to keep up with myself sometimes. I'm glad you mentioned it, and I felt like I wasn't alone. One of our other good sisters commented, I can truly relate with this. This is literally the story of my life. And the part where she mentioned feeling constant disappointment, it really plummets your self-esteem and confidence. Another good sis left a comment which actually led to my first point, which is, I can relate to this so much. I find it hard to set and maintain standards for myself, basically staying accountable to me. I think this is even more difficult for those of us who were denied basic agency and boundaries in our childhood and young adulthood through traditions and culture. It feels like your existence belongs to someone else and you are fully accountable to them until you become an adult. As adults, we have the sole responsibility for our existence and everything it comprises: our joy, health, relationships, careers, etc. And I genuinely found this comment to be so profound and so interesting. So thank you, sis, for leaving this comment. And I think it's so true that for a lot of us, especially if you are suffering from like eldest daughter syndrome, or, having grown up in a place where you were given, or grown up in a way or a culture where you were giving a lot of responsibilities from a young age, or you had just had a lot of expectations put on you from a very young age, it's easy to kind of do this revenge thing. I don't know if you've heard the concept of, I think it's called revenge insomnia or something, where it's like you need to go to sleep after a long day of work, you know you need to go to sleep, but because you have been, so burdened and your day has been so filled with responsibilities and having to work, and you feel like it kind of took away time for you to really enjoy yourself and do things for yourself, you take the time that you're meant to be sleeping as a time for revenge, and you steal back and you reclaim your time by not going to sleep and giving your body the rest that it actually needs in its allocated time, but actually scrolling through your phone or doing other things which make you happy. And it kind of creates this really long cycle of insomnia, sleeplessness, but also just this feeling that your time is being stolen from you when you are working. In our adult years, as our good sis said, we are the only people who are accountable for what happens to us in the multiple areas in our lives. And as much as you may not be responsible for what happened to you when you were younger, and you may not be responsible for the environment that you grew up in, and you're probably not, unfortunately, fortunately, you are now the person who is responsible for your adult years and the way you navigate through your life as an adult. And I think it's important to really take up that personal responsibility and agency that comes with having to govern your own life in your adulthood. Now, I don't say that to say forget everything you went through. I think it's acknowledge everything that you have been through and the way it is shaping your behavior in your adult life, and take the responsibility to do something about it. And that may not even be going to find the solution. It may actually be going to talk it out in therapy. I always have the link to BetterHelp in my description, where you could get affordable and online therapy. It's super accessible. Click that link. That is where I get my therapy as well. It is an affiliate link, so clicking it does support my channel, just for full transparency, but it is something I 100% advocate for and something I have used personally. But that could be going to therapy. It could be finding accountability in your life, or just talking through the wounds that you have from being an eldest daughter, or having, disproportionate amounts of responsibility put on you as a child, and the way that that is affecting you in your adulthood and affecting your view on life and your view on your own personal agency. Whatever it may be, you need to start walking out. Why do you feel the way that you do? And I think sometimes these things manifest in that revenge aspect, that a revenge of, I'm reclaiming my time by kind of casting off all restraint and deciding to govern my own time and do what I enjoy, even if it is to the detriment of my own discipline or my own goals, because I'm reclaiming my time. And there is such an overwhelming temptation to do that, to no longer live bound by society's expectations or even your expectations for yourself, because you want an semblance of freedom. But it's important to remember that freedom can also come through discipline. Freedom can also be you pursuing your goals with all diligence. It's not just casting off all restraint. It's not just, trying to live in a way that completely is opposite to the way that you were raised. Sometimes it's, okay, let me walk through this and let me heal, and then let me actually come to figure out which parts of my life and which parts of my goals do I actually want to maintain, even if they weren't taught to me in the best ways. Even if I learned discipline through false responsibility, I can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I have to still realize that there is a place for discipline in my life. It just shouldn't come with or come through false responsibility. So I need to go and deal with my relationship with false responsibility, deal with my familial relationships, deal with the different commitments that I have and my feelings towards them, so that I can actually take the true benefit of having discipline and make it into a beautiful thing which works out for my benefit. And reframing your way of thinking about certain things, rather than just throwing them all out because there is a grown disdain towards them, is necessary, especially when you get into your adult life, because you do need to take accountability for the choices you make. You do need to be the one who's sitting in the front driver's side of your life, who is navigating through your life and trying to get you to the ultimate destination of achieving destiny, purpose, living in a joyful life, you are the one who has to take responsibility for that in your adult years. And it's tough and it's a huge responsibility to bear. And I do empathize and sympathize with those of us who may not have been equipped with the most impeccable start in our lives, in our childhood, to help us navigate our way to a good adult life with the most ease and in the most healthy way. And I think it is quite unfortunate, but even though unfortunately we didn't have it when we were younger, it is now our job as adults to equip ourselves with these things. And even if it feels like we are behind, even if it feels like we should revolt, we must think about whether our actions are beneficial in the long term. And this is why I constantly have to bring up these mindset things, because as much as we may badger people with practical steps and badger people with personal development content and tell people, grow up, heal for God's sake, like get over it, there are a lot of hurdles which we as women and we as people are overcoming because of our own individual unique experiences. And I never want to negate that, but it is something which we need to confront, and it is something which we need to be diligent in confronting. So let's think about being practical and mindful. First things first, if you are struggling to be a person who keeps your word, it is probably because you are struggling with organization. You are struggling with not just the idea of discipline, but even if you've accepted the fact that you need to be disciplined, or you need to be diligent, or you need to just be consistent, you may be struggling to remain that way because you haven't organized your life accordingly. Personal development isn't just about mindset, airy-fairy concepts, metaphors and all of those illustrations. It is also about the practical things which you go off and implement into your life. It's different things like implementing a to-do list, implementing a routine, trying to find a step-by-step morning routine which puts you into certain habits automatically that benefit your personal development. It's setting aside time to do the things which you don't necessarily want to do and which feel like a drag, but will ultimately help you get closer to the vision that you have for your life. But the thing is, I don't have to tell you these things. You probably already know these things. Even if you don't and you actually want me to make, content which is very practical and about productivity, then let me know. But I highly recommend that you check out the links in my description, because I will actually link to some channels which talk about productivity. People like Vika TV who are on YouTube, Ali Abdal, people who Matt Diavella, like people who talk about productivity. I will link to them as well so you can get caught up on their content. But if you would like for me to make content about productivity, because it's a journey that I am currently on, trying to be productive with my time, trying to be more energetic, trying to be more efficient, and trying to be more goal oriented, then let me know if you want to see that. Oh, another amazing channel, Lamide Elizabeth. I will leave all of those linked down below. But the thing is, you probably know so much about productivity. You probably know what it is you should be doing. I hear this thing all the time, and I used to say it all the time, which is, I know what I need to be doing, it's just hard to actually do it. And this is why I say oftentimes it's just a mindset thing more than it is a knowledge thing, because we are equipped with so much information and so much knowledge right now. You've got the internet, you've got YouTube, you've got books, you've probably got books on books on books, you've probably got journals and journals on journals of different things that you said you were going to do and said that you were going to commit to, but you just never really got round to doing it because you never really saw it as a high priority. And this is one thing you need to understand when it comes to being a woman of your word and being a woman of integrity. You need to consider your own words highly. You need to regard your own words highly. And I think a lot of us struggle with this point because we feel as though our word actually doesn't matter. And it could be because you've been in situations where your voice and your opinion and your viewpoint on certain things actually didn't matter. You were told, you're a child, what do you know about any of that? Don't talk about adult things, don't be an adult business. And so you started to disregard your own input into certain situations because you thought, my voice isn't important. What I have to say actually isn't important. What you have to say and what you declare from your mouth is important, but also the things that you instruct yourself to do are also important for your life, because you are an authority figure in your life. It's so easy to give over and relinquish all authority in our lives to other people, right? Our parents, our spouses, our pastors, our bosses, the people who we consider influential people in our lives. We give them all authority to dictate to us who we should be and what we should do. But you are a very high, if not one of the highest authority authorities in your life after God. And I'm going to be very honest, and that's how I view myself. I view it as no matter how much advice that you can get from these influential people in your life who are absolutely amazing and have authority and power in their words and in their advice to you, you ultimately are the one who decides what gets implemented into your life. And so it's easy to over consume content, go to so many different sources to try and search for advice. And this is why you're out here asking the same people the same questions, YouTubing and watching video after video after video about the same thing, but your life hasn't actually changed because you, the highest authority in your life, have decided or have not yet decided to implement any rules, regulations, boundaries into your own life. So no matter what you see, no matter how much you consume, if you don't decide to implement it, you're just going to end up even more confused and even more anxious than ever, because you'll end up suffering with information overload. And the majority of us know so much of what we could do, and we have so many options of different ways to set up our day, different tactics on how to become more efficient, more productive. And we have all the stuff, we've got the books, we've bought the courses, we've done all these things. We haven't necessarily read all of them, we haven't necessarily watched all of them in full. However, we have a good grasp. If somebody came to tell us more tips, we'll probably be able to tell them, yeah, I know that, yeah, I've tried that, yeah, but you haven't stuck to it, or you haven't even implemented it long enough to see the fruits of it in your own life. Sometimes it's not about finding this secret sauce. Sometimes it's not about finding this, one magic pill that's going to help you lose weight. Sometimes it's just sticking to your diet plan long enough. Sometimes it's just sticking to going to the gym for long enough, or sometimes you're not going to find, the magic job that's going to make you, millions and millions overnight. Sometimes it's just you climbing the ranks and doing the work and getting clued up on your field and in your industry enough and putting in the groundwork enough to make a groundbreaking career out of that in the long term. Sometimes it's just about putting in the work. So please put into practice what you already know, but find different ways to implement to-do lists or, alarm systems or things which, prompt you to get certain things done. Just different tactics and strategies, whether it's making a Notion board or just having a notes app on your phone where you write the things that you need to do and you just tick them off as you get it done. That's the way I usually go around with my productivity these days. Making sure that you have a set morning routine or a set evening routine. Making sure that your environment is conducive to your productivity. Making sure that your home is conducive to your productivity and actually inspires you, or making sure that you go out enough to get inspired by your environment. Whatever it is you need to do, please do it and find what works for you. Everything and every resource and every video that's on the internet is purely advisory. It's purely just a suggestion. Please, sis, decide what you want to implement in your life and make sure it works for you. I know that it girls are out here waking up at 5 a.m, but you don't have to wake up at 5 a.m. to be productive, especially if you're not a morning person. For some of y'all, waking up at 9 a.m. works just fine with your lifestyle right now and with your capacity right now. But over time, that may change and it may switch. Embrace that evolution, embrace that change. Don't even become over dependent on the fact that this used to work. What used to work when you were 18 or 17 when you were studying for your A-levels or your final exams may not work now that you're working corporate and you're no longer in school from 9 to 3, but you're actually in work from 7 to 7, so constantly evolve and constantly find what practically works for you so that you can continue to work in alignment with your goals with ease. Take away all the friction, take away the distractions, take away the difficulty of trying to do something else or wear somebody else's armor and do something which other people have done which doesn't necessarily work for you, and it's actually making life a little bit harder. So experiment, try new things, become aware of new things, but ultimately find what works for you and stick to it. The next thing here after organization is just diligence. Like I said, find what works for you and stick to it. It's going to take probably more than one day for you to fix your entire life. It's going to probably take more than one day for you to become the woman who you actually want to be. One of the greatest quotes which I think I've ever heard in my life came from Michelle Obama, and she said she tells her daughters that life is practice, that the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. Because life is practice, what you do today is practice, right? And the more you practice something, the more you become diligent in it, the more you become set in those ways. So even if you are doing something bad, the more often you practice in doing it, the more often you do it, and the more often you rehearse it, the more set in those ways you become. So even with bad habits, we need to tackle them a lot quicker than we usually do, because the longer we allow bad habits to exist, the harder they become to get rid of in the long run. But it also works on the flip side, of course. The more we practice good things, the easier it becomes to do those good things, and the more those good things direct the outcomes of our lives, right? Life is about practice. Think about an athlete, right? They're going to the gym or they're going to the track and they're going to run and they're going to keep practicing. Each practice, they may not even make their personal best. Each practice, they may go so hard that they go until failure. They may even find some practices and some training days frustrating because they're trying to do something which last week they could do, but this week they can't do it because their mindset's off. But what do? They keep showing up to practice. Why? Because I know a time is coming where these things which I'm practicing now will just become common everyday things for me. I just need to practice them long enough. And we need to approach our lives in that same manner. Practice being a woman who keeps her word. Practice waking up at that time in the morning. Practice staying on that, meal prepping every week. Practice going to the gym as consistently as possible. Practice reading a certain amount of, pages in a book every day, right? Practice it. Stop trying to digest everything in big chunks. At the end of the day, you need to fall in love with the process. And this is what I mean by be diligent. It's not enough to, have short bursts of discipline. And I'm very much guilty of being somebody who can get hyper focused on something and get a lot done in one day. But I get so much done and then I get burnt out that I'm not going to do anything else for another 2 days. And I go through those cycles over and over again. Sometimes you may need to take a step back and be like, you know what? I know I have a really high capacity, but actually, in order to play this out strategically and to be beneficial in the long term, I'm gonna need to take smaller bites. I'm gonna need to do this one step at a time. The thing about diligence is diligence can get very, very boring because you may not be doing the ideal thing just yet, but you still need to be consistent in the thing that you are doing right now. For example, being diligent in your studies. You may hate, I remember in uni, there was a module that I had to take in my psychology class, which meant I couldn't avoid doing a certain paper. I had been avoiding doing like mathematical stuff, statistical stuff, scientific stuff, because that's not how my brain works. I'm good at numbers because your girl likes money. But when it comes down to science and reading charts, and as soon as you bring in certain symbols, I'm like that meme of that woman who's trying to calculate things. I don't know what's going on. And it got to a point in my course where they were like, you have to actually take this paper, it's compulsory. And it was so frustrating to me, but I really wanted to kick in the bucket because I didn't enjoy that paper. I didn't enjoy the maths behind it. I didn't enjoy reading all the scientific research and the results. I hated it. But in order to be a diligent student and to actually help the bigger picture I had for my educational journey, I had to be diligent even in the things that I didn't like. And that's the thing about diligence. Diligence is about doing the mundane. Diligence is about, this may not be super inspiring because we can get very charged up, right? We get super charged up at the fact that this is difficult, but this is also what I love, and the adrenaline and the stress and all of that can be addictive, but the mundane can seem boring. Don't be addicted to these short-term sparks of challenging yourself with one thing, overcoming it, and now your life is boring. Find something to commit to which you do consistently through the good times, through the excitement, and through the boring times. You may not like the fact that today you weren't able to have fast food, tomorrow you're not going to be able to have fast food, the day after that you're not going to be able to have fast food. Sorry boo, but if you have a certain goal, you're not going to be able to do it. So just get diligent in taking it one step at a time and conquer today. Stop trying to put too much on your plate. Conquer today. Conquer tomorrow, conquer the next day. And before you realize it, you've done a whole week of something consistently. You've done 2 weeks, you've done a month, you've done a whole quarter of a year, and you're seeing the massive compounding growth that comes with that diligence. But it won't work unless you take things a bite at a time and just take practice. Give your best to this as practice. Now, the next aspect is discipline. And I'm not just going to talk about it in the sense of how I was just talking about diligence, because obviously a huge part of being diligent is to be disciplined. However, I'm talking about it in the sense of like discipline. Like, you know, when children violate the rules that their parents have set and their parents are like, now I'm gonna have to discipline you. That's the sort of discipline I'm talking about. When it comes to personal development, it's so easy to talk about discipline as just doing and not talking about discipline in terms of repercussions for not doing. A lot of us have a horrible relationship with this idea of discipline or punishment or just repercussions for violated boundaries, because maybe when we were younger, you know, we were disciplined without explanation, or we were disciplined to an abusive degree, or we felt as though our misbehavior was actually just being misunderstood. I think it's important to reassess and reevaluate and rebuild our relationship with the concept of discipline or the concept of consequence, because when those sorts of things are manipulated or abused or they go too far, especially when we are children, we grow up to have a very warped sense of thinking when it comes to those things. We think that consequences are too harsh. We think that discipline is or punishment is too harsh. And I don't believe in punishing ourselves. I don't believe in, because I think punishment has a lot to do with shame. Punishment has a lot to do with judgment. But I do think that when you get older, you need to develop consequences for violated boundaries. So for example, when we are in friendships or in relationships and somebody pushes us past or pushes a situation past our boundaries and the boundaries we have set, we are easily able to enforce the consequences. Well, some of us are easily able to enforce the consequences that come for that violation. So for example, we have to break up, or we can no longer be friends anymore, or we can no longer have these sorts of conversations with each other because it's clear that every time we do that, you push me past my edge, right? But when we set certain things for ourselves, when we say, you know, I'm going to do this, I'm going to be this sort of woman, I'm going to implement this into my lifestyle, we need to also create consequences for ourselves that occur when we violate those boundaries, because those habits are boundaries. You know, I'm gonna wake up at this time. If I don't wake up at this time, what does that mean for me? You know, a lot of us, because we are, you know, the adults in our own lives now, we don't have anyone telling us, you're told off, go to your room, you're grounded, give me your phone. Well, when you were younger, or, you know, if you grew up having to do household chores, you may relate to the fact that if you didn't get your chores done, you couldn't go out on the weekend or something like that. That was a clear consequence for a violated rule. If you break the rules or you don't live up to what you've agreed to do or what you are responsible for, there is a clear consequence here, right? As we get older though, we don't have parents telling us, no, you can't go out, no, you can't buy that, no, you can't do that. And so it makes it hard to then stick to those responsibilities, those things we said we were going to do, the things we know that we need to do. And that's why we don't stick to our budgets. Budgets are boundaries, right? We don't stick to our budgets. We don't stick to our word. We aren't consistent in the things that we say we are going to be consistent in, because what's the consequence? And even if there is a consequence, I'll live with it. Okay, I finished, I didn't put anything in my savings pot. I'll just put something into my savings pot next month, or maybe I just, I dabbed a little bit into having some junk food today and it's all right, I'll work off the calories later. But do you actually do it? There's a lot we need to talk about in terms of actually building up discipline and consequences for our actions. Now, these consequences don't need to be corporal in nature. They don't need to be, physical. They don't have to be us, standing in a corner and telling ourselves, you're bad. Oh my God, I can't believe you did that, which is what a lot of us actually resort to doing. This overwhelming feeling of disappointment to the point where we're like, I can't do anything good. Oh my gosh, will I ever change my life? Sometimes it's just, you know what, sis, you said you were going to get all this work done today and you didn't get it done only because you procrastinated, not because it took longer than you thought, but you actually put your effort towards this. We need to put in place consequences that are directly proportional to the fact that we didn't put in a lot of effort. Do you get what I mean? And so the consequence for that, deciding to scroll, this is my one boy, deciding to scroll on TikTok is you may have to stay up a bit later today to get that work done, and you're still gonna have to wake up early tomorrow to stick to tomorrow's word. Do you get what I mean? And to stick to tomorrow's boundaries. Do you really want to get 7 hours of sleep instead of 9? you know, and I have to be honest with myself in that fact. But the majority of the time it will be like, I'll just wake up later tomorrow. And that's how you then go on this downward spiral of not keeping your word to yourself. So I think it's important to remind yourself that, hey, there are consequences for not doing what it is you said you were going to do. And that means that maybe on the weekend you can't go out, baby girl. You know, you can't go and chief it up with your friends. Get all your work done so that you can go and chief it up with your friends, and you can go and, you know, go to the day brunch, you can go to the night out, or, you know, there may need to be a boundary put in place that says, actually, this is out of my budget. I cannot buy any more clothes till next month's paycheck comes through. And you need to self-regulate these things. You need to self-impose these things. But even if you struggle with that, get yourself, and this is my last point, some accountability and community. I'm gonna be preaching the same message till I die. Baby girl, if you're trying to succeed in this glowing and growing journey, you're gonna need other people. You're going to need people out there who you give permission to keep you in check. People who are dedicated to doing this journey of life with you, who can tell you, you said that this is the sort of woman you're trying to be. You told me that this is your plan to execute it. How far are you along on that plan? And actually, I can see that you're kind of acting outside of that. So, you know, before it goes too far, I just want to let you know, I see you. I see you. And sometimes knowing that not only are we measuring ourselves, other people are making sure that we stay on course is really, really helpful. And I think some of us don't want to give other people that position in our lives because, like I was just explaining, some people may have abused that position. Some people may have even bent that position of authority or accountability that they had in our lives to their own benefit by manipulating us so that they could have control or access to our resources, our time, our energy beyond what we actually wanted to and should have given them. So for example, people may be like, can you do XYZ for me? Okay, I don't actually have capacity to do XYZ for you. Oh, but you said you wanted to be a more giving person. You said you wanted to be, you know, more social. Yeah, but not to this degree and not to the extent where I am violating my own personal boundaries just to benefit you. So be careful and make sure that you have accountability in your life and community in your life who also have your best interest at heart and are not just going to bend you to, you know, serve them, but are also in the business of serving you and loving you, and it's reciprocal. And that for me is what sisterhood is. That's what friendship is. That's what community is. So get people in your life, get friends, get community members, get yourself just plugged into certain spaces where there are like-minded people who, you know, have your best interest at heart, who have a clear understanding of what growth looks like in your life, what development looks like in your life, and who can actually help you get there by providing you and even offering you resources, knowledge, time, money, effort, access to them, comfort, advice, wisdom, whatever it is, encouraging words, which helps you keep on course. And so to conclude, sis, when it comes down to building this integrity thing and being a woman of your word, just remember, your words hold a lot of power, and the things that you say you will do should be a priority to you, okay? You are important, and the things you have to say are important, and the things that you are putting in place in your life, your boundaries, your new personal mission statement or values, your new routine, your new ethos, the way that you are navigating through this world now that you're becoming the woman that you actually want to be, it is worth your diligence. It is worth you committing yourself to it, and sometimes having to make sacrifices in order to pursue it and to do it well. There's one thing that somebody commented under one of my videos, which is you just have an air of excellence around you and around the things that you do, and it's one of the most humbling compliments I've ever received, because for me, if I'm gonna put my name on something, it's gonna have to be good. It's gonna have to be a reflection of me. Now, don't get me wrong, if you go and read some of my academic essays that I've done in the past, I was waffling because I did not do any of that reading, but that's because that stuff didn't really matter to me until my final exams. However, when it comes to the stuff that actually matters to me, I hold my name in very high regard. And this isn't to puff up my own chest and be like, ha ha ha, this is me. It's to also tell you, sis, what I've done for myself and what I desire for myself is what I desire for you. And if nobody has ever told you before, regard your name highly. Don't be somebody who's out here, you know, saying one thing and living another thing. Don't be a hypocrite. Don't be somebody who lacks integrity to the point where other people can call you up on your ish. Listen, girl, learn to self-regulate. Learn to hold up this picture that says, this is the woman that I want to be. This is the vision for my life. This is the woman I know I'm supposed to be. This is the woman who my purpose requires for me to be. Looking in the mirror right now, am I her? You know, and what will help make up the gap? Is it therapy? Is it getting community? Is it actually putting in place the things I actually know? Is it being a bit more disciplined and a bit more honest with myself about where my energy and my time and my resources are actually being spent? Be honest with yourself, okay? Before you even go out and be vulnerable, you know, with the people in your community in order to ask them for help, be vulnerable with yourself and be like, you know what? Let's have some transparency here. No need for pretense, no need to pretend. Am I actually living up to my fullest potential of what I actually could be doing with my resources and my energy and the knowledge that I have? Because if you know better, you do better. Now, it's another conversation for people who don't know better. And that's where the whole of us need to band together to get women educated and to help them with resources to be able to do better. But for those of the majority of us who may be watching this video who know better, could do better, but haven't decided, let's bridge that gap. Let's make a decision every day, and that decision has to be made daily. It really, really does. But please, lady, please, sis, be a woman of integrity. And this message is also, you know, for men, if there are any men watching. Take it one day at a time, but make sure today gets done. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that it was actually very, very helpful. This is definitely just scratching the surface of this entire conversation, and I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. And so leave a comment down below, help each other out, share your wisdom, share your experiences, share your thoughts and where you are right now. And of course, keep it loving, keep it respectful, and keep it helpful. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and turn on your notifications, and let me know if there are any videos you would like to see from me. I will talk to you very, very soon, and as always, stay beautiful and stay blessed. Mwah.